everyone. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to Bread and Roses. I'm Maryam Namazie.
And I'm Fariborz Pooya. I'm very pleased to be back.
We're very excited to have Fariborz back as well. He was obviously off into the mountains bringing some tablets for the world.
But there were plenty. I lost a few. I just left with 2 tablets with 10 commandments on them.
10 commandments too many.
Yes, they are. And in this week's program, we have an interesting interview for you with Gulalai Ismail on aware girls.
We'll also be talking about Turkey's new rape law, the Islamist plans to bring a Muslim-only suburb in Montreal, an anti-Islamophobia resolution passed by the Canadian Parliament.
That's a really, really bad news.
Absurd. We've got news about civilians trapped in the outskirts of Mosul, Iraq. Our insane fatwa is about how to put your trousers on without inciting the wrath of God.
Tough times.
And finally, the slice of life is about a teenager fighting ISIS with art. Stay with us. Do not go away. In Turkey, there is a bill that lets off men that sexually abuse girls under the age of 15 by allowing them to marry them so that they don't face any criminal charges. It is outrageous. And
this is just created such uproar in the Turkish society, rightly so, and internationally. It seems this is a Islamist threat, basically, that you know, having sexual relation with minor, it's okay, and try to justify it. And the Turkish Islamist government is exactly doing the same thing that Daesh does, Islamic Republic of Iran is done, and many other Islamists in any other country, if you allow them, that's what they do.
Yeah, and it follows the government's annulment of a law that prevents sexual acts with underage girls. So basically, this is again reinforcing the fact that child marriages are permissible under Islamic rules, and this is part of the Islamization of Turkey, isn't it?
And there's a huge protest in Turkey. There's been thousands and thousands of protesters in different cities of Turkey, and we need to support them. It's important to support them.
We definitely need to support them. Their fight is our fight, and of course this is something that we see anytime the Islamists have any role to play in a society. We've heard news now of actually a Muslim convert. He used to be Christian. He's Egyptian Canadian. His name is Nabil Warda, and he has brought a proposal to have a Muslim only area in the suburbs of Montreal.
And this is crazy. He started with the argument very cunningly. You see, people don't have enough money to buy and go to the mortgage companies, and paying interest is not Islamic, and people don't want to do that, or they don't have enough money. We want to create a space for people to be able to use that.
And from that argument, it then goes on to saying, well, we don't want women dressed any way that they want in our area. We don't want people drinking in public. And of course, non-Muslims can also come and live in that area as long as they follow our rules. And again, this sort of Islamization by stealth.
This is Islamization of the Canadian society, which Islamists actually are assaulting the Canadian society, and everybody needs to be very clear. We've heard the news of the Canadian Parliament discussing and passing a motion and legislation that makes Islamophobia a criminal offence, and how they define Islamophobia is very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think the point is that they're saying that Islamophobia is hate against Muslims, which rightly is unacceptable, but it also, it includes any sort of criticism of Islam and even Islamic political movements. And so basically it's an effort to silence criticism. It's something that the Islamists have proposed and it's now passed. So it makes it very dangerous.
Absolutely, and you could always see that Islamists use any opportunity to push the agenda. You can't criticize Islam anymore. You can't criticize political Islamic movement. Who are they? The Islamic regime of Iran, ISIS, Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, and different Islamist groups. So this is exactly the culture of the dictatorial Islamists in Middle East and North Africa. They're exporting in different countries, and that's what they're doing.
They use blasphemy laws, apostasy laws, where they have power, and where they don't, they use the concept of Islamophobia. It's something that really needs to be challenged. It is an assault on free expression and the criticism that's much needed against this movement and against religion in general. It's part of free expression.
And I think it's important, sorry Maryam, that I need to make this point. So that law needs to be reversed. Yeah. That needs to be rescinded, and people need to fight to remove. This is a shame, actually, a black mark on the political establishment of Canada, and that needs to be changed.
Yeah, definitely. Before we end this segment, we'd like to just tell people about a report that we've received from the International Federation of Iraqi Refugees. About 5,000 civilians who are trapped between Daesh and Shia forces, which are backed by the Islamic regime of Iran, in the outskirts of Mosul, Iraq, in a town called Khazer. And they're calling for the Kurdish regional government to protect the civilians, give them safe passage, and save them from this situation that they're in.
And you see that in parts of Mosul there is a fight between the two factions of the Islamists. One, on the one hand, those supported by the Islamic regime of Iran, and the Shia fascists, really, who have sort of and have blockaded part of the routes of civilians to get out, and on the other hand, ISIS, who's trying to use civilians as a shield, really, human shield.
And you've also got U.S. military there. You've got Russians bombing. You've got this and that and everything.
The issue is that we need to protect the civilians, and United Nations and international community and progressive movements, everybody. We have to demand from United Nations to protect civilians in this war, and that's crucial.
A few weeks ago, I met Gulalai Ismail from Aware Girls at a Women in Secularism conference in Washington, D.C. When you listen to her, she started this work at the age of 16 in one of the most horrendous areas of Pakistan, the northwest frontier where they have, these horrible tribal courts against women and the Taliban rules. And of course, she reminds us that this is also an area of non-violent resistance and a really great historical peace movement.
Absolutely. And one of the striking things about this interview is that it shows that the need for organizations from the ground, people as self-organization, is important. And you see there are thousands and thousands of these organizations in Asia, Middle East, North Africa, which are confronting the Islamists and the dictatorial governments as well. And they need to be recognized. I mean, that's the feature of the modern times, and the support for this, this movement is so important. The other point before, my time on it is limited, Maryam, you're giving me bad looks. The important thing is that we've always said in Pakistan there is a very strong women's movement who always challenged the Islamists and the right wing and fascists in that country.
Okay. You've got to listen to this interview. You are going to be blown away by this young woman and the work that she's done along with her sister in Pakistan. Don't go away, stay with us. Gulalai Ismail, it's such a wonderful pleasure to have you on our program. I wanted to speak to you about Girls Aware, something you started at the age of 16. How did you go about doing that, and why?
When growing up in a culture which treats women and girls differently, and growing up at a very young age, I realized that I'm treated differently from boys in my home, in my surrounding. My brothers could go outside, they could play cricket. I couldn't go outside. I was supposed to stay inside. I was supposed to cover myself. My body was a matter of shame for for me, for my family, and kind of like being girl was something associated with shame. So it kind of like that was very disturbing for me. And then at the same time, I would also hear a lot from my cousins that how privileged we are because we are going to school. And I couldn't understand that, because at that time I was like, being a girl when you live in a society which treats you as a matter of shame, and then you hear that you are privileged. I couldn't get it. But then one of my cousin, who was almost my age, and she was taken out of school so that she could be married to a man who was 10 years elder than her, and this cousin of mine, she wanted to become a pilot. So it was very shocking for me. Like it shocked me to see her dreams shattered. And that was a point when I realized that yes, my right to education was actually not a right, it was a privileged. I was going to school because I was in a privileged family which thought girls should go to education, and it was not the same for all girls in my community. So that was the incident, and that was the point when I didn't want anyone else to go through same. I didn't want any other girl not being able to follow her dreams and not being able to do what she wants to do. So I decided with my sister that we need to do something about it. We need to change it. So what we did, we started talking to other girls in our neighborhood. We started talking to girls in our schools, and we soon realized that many girls have actually internalized the discriminations and the patriarchy. It's kind of defense mechanism for them. They start believing that yes, it's okay, that's normal. So we thought that if we want to bring change, and if we want to change it, then the first thing we have to do, that we have to talk with girls. We have to tell them that they are equal human beings, they are full human beings, and because they are full, complete human beings, they have full human rights. So that's how we started, because we realized that girls have internalized it and we wanted to start it with girls. So we started a campaign to raise awareness among girls about their rights. So that's how we started it, and now we have a number of programs which make about political empowerment of young women, about making sure that young women have spaces in the political spheres, their voices are heard, they have decision-making positions within the political parties, and also that the community actually supports them. So we also work a lot with the community. We also work on countering violent extremism among young people and preventing them from religious extremism. And that we started our work on countering violent extremism, because that is also that's a lot linked to me as a person. Because when I was growing up, I grew up in a society where I learned that jihad is okay, and this is duty of every Muslim to go for jihad, either to Kashmir or Afghanistan. That was taught to me on media. On media, we would hear that how Muslims are getting oppressed all over the world, and being a Muslim, it is our responsibility to go and fight for them. I was learning in my school that how non-Muslims are bad people, Hindus are bad guys, they are bad people, and therefore we are living in a separate country. And I was also learning it like hearing it from the mosque, hearing it on the media. So, and then also we had people in our family who were going to jihad for Kashmir and Afghanistan, and they were very celebrated. They were celebrated figures for going to jihad. And then we would see recruitment of jihad on walls in our village. So I grew up in a culture where jihad was a very celebrated idea. So I also wanted to go for jihad. But my father was a very different person. He was a champion of non-violence, and he always criticized policies of supporting militancy and war, and he had suffered a lot for that. And to give us education, he would he would make sure that we meet with people so that we can get different perspectives. And in one of those meetings, I met with a mother whose 13-year-old son who would go to madrasa to read Quran, not for any militancy training. He was just going there to read Quran, but he was brainwashed there, and he was told that he was told in the madrasa that jihad is the duty of every Muslim, we have to do it, and we don't need permission of parents for that. So this boy went to jihad without the permission of the mother, and the mother said that she was so, imagine a son gets disappeared. She was so desperate, and then after a few months she received dead body of the son. So that pain of a mother looking at her, that how she lost her young son to jihad, that was again it changed something in me. And I was like, no, this is not what I wanted to do. Yes, no Muslims should be under oppression, no one should face violence in their lives, but this is not what I want to do. I don't want people as 13 to get killed. And that was in the moment that when I wanted to prevent other young persons from going to these militant organizations. And then I was lucky that I got mentorship. My father connected me to different secular women activists actually, who mentored me and who helped me unlearn my own violent perspectives. So they helped me unlearn my own stereotypes and things I had, and they helped me learn a new alternative perspective about nonviolence, pluralism. And then we started working with young people by establishing a youth peace network, which helps young people to prevent them from joining militant organizations. And also with partnership of young people, we promote an alternative narrative of non-violence, coexistence and pluralism, because we believe that pluralism and coexistence is something that it takes out oxygen from militancy, takes out oxygen from fundamentalism. So we are promoting these alternative narratives to have societies which are more just, more peaceful and non-violent.
And also, I mean, when you talk, you're also doing it under conditions that are very difficult. I mean, the northwest area of Pakistan is one of the most difficult areas to live as a woman, as someone who believes in non-violence. How have you managed to do that?
It's very tricky. Northwest frontier province of Pakistan was a province which had actually on the lead of non-violent movement during the partition of India and during struggle of freedom from the British when we were colonized. So this was a land of non-violence, and we had this we had a leader of non-violence. He was friend of Gandhi, and Gandhi had said that he had learned non-violence from Bacha Khan. He is also known as Frontier Gandhi, and there were like thousands and millions of people who had actually joined movement of non-violence. So northwest of province of Pakistan, which today is known to the world for being a very conservative and violent place, was actually land of non-violence. But what has happened that in our books, they don't teach us history. They don't teach us our non-violent heroes. In our books, they only teach us war heroes and the people who were leaders of non-violent. They are taught to us as traitors. So one of the things we are doing in our work is that linking young people back to the non-violent history, reminding them that how we were the champions of non-violence and how we can change things with non-violence. And we give them these we give them these non-violent leaders as their role models, so they get to know these role models. And because we have a long history of non-violence, it helps me a lot in my work, because they can relate to it, because they were Pashtuns, they were from the northwest of Pakistan, their grandfathers were part of the movement. Like, it's not very old, their own grandfathers were part of those movements, so it's very easy for them to link back to their history and to link back that yes, how actually it's possible to live in a society which is non-violence and coexistence. Yes, today, and it's also true that it's very difficult. It's very difficult today because history has been manipulated. Syllabus was changed, curriculum was changed, and a lot of violence and hatred has been taught to the young people through books, through media, through mosques. So now it is difficult, but we do it through, number one, peer education. We have learned that peer education helps a lot, because when young people approach young people and other young people, they tend to engage in dialogue easily, and they are more kind of open and receptive to dialogues. So we use peer education as a tool. Number two, we make these young people feel significant, because when they engage in the Youth Peace Network and they develop their own initiatives to counter violent extremism, we support their initiatives, we mentor them. So, and when they achieve something in their community, for example, if they're able to prevent one young person from joining a militant organization, or when they are able to take out one young child from militant madrasa and admit them in a public school, they feel very significant in their community. They feel yes, they can change their community, and it also helps them resolve their identity crisis, which has been falsely created by the militant networks. So it kind of like they feel like being a peace activist and being someone who can actually bring change in the community. And we also make sure that we give opportunities to young people where they can talk to people who they see as the other, as the different, by doing interfaith dialogues. And when they engage in interfaith dialogues, when they start talking to people, they start understanding that the people whom they think that they were others, are enemies, are actually just common human beings like us, and kind of like we don't need to objectify them. So it also helps a lot young people to unlearn the hate and violence they have learned from media and schools and everywhere.
As a final question, that region though even is also very difficult for women and girls, isn't it? It's where you hear the Taliban has quite a lot of power. There are these tribal courts we often hear about. So how has that how has that impacted on your work, and how have you been able to challenge it given that context?
When I started my work, and like we would do any let's say like any event, like once we were doing once we were celebrating International Women's Day, so we were having an event and we invited different civil society organizations, activists, and different people in the event, and like we were there on the stage and like waiting for people to come, and then everyone would come and tell us who is doing this event, like who is the leader of the event, and we'd tell we are doing it, and like we are the leaders, and they're like no, like who is the actual one who is doing the event, and we're like we are the actual ones. They're like oh no, I mean like who is actually behind it, and like we are the one who are behind it, and it was like but you are girls. Yes, girls can do it. So you know, it was like initially it was very difficult for the people to even accept the idea and to that girls can do it, but you know slowly they became kind of like accustomed to it. And then I remember that when once we were doing a peace training with young people, and like we have all girls team in our office, and we do everything by our own selves, like even if it's like organizing chairs. Usually these things are supposed to be duties of men in our culture, but we do it by ourselves. Like we will paste banners on the walls, and we would ready charts and everything. So our young persons have given us feedback that when they would come, they would expect, these boys would expect that now we will call them to help us to, you know, pick the tables and pictures, but we never did that. And then they were like, for them it changed something when they see that, oh, actually these girls are doing it and they're not asking us for help, and if they can do things, we can do things. So it kind of like when they get exposure to girls leaders, initially it's a very different idea for them, but then kind of like gradually they become accustomed to it, and they realize that it's normal, and if girls can do it, if girls can counter violent extremism in such difficult circumstances, why can't they are like, why can't we can also do it. So it's an amazing experience. It's also a difficult experience. It's always spaces for civil societies are shrinking, not just in Pakistan, all over the world. Spaces are shrinking. Now we have more repressive laws which restricts people from freedom of expression. Like recently a cybercrime law has been passed which will make it very difficult to express ourselves. Like just few days back, a 16-year boy has been charged for blasphemy because he liked a picture on Facebook. So it's like getting very repressive. It's becoming very difficult. We know many there are many amazing secular women in Pakistan, but all of them, like none of them are celebrated. They face a lot of hatred from the society. They face a lot of violence from the society. I have been labeled as atheist because I'm working something which is different, which challenges the culture, which challenges the establishments. I have been, and if in Pakistan you are labeled as atheist, it means anyone can just kill you. I have been labeled as an agent of the West, as an agent of CIA for the work I'm doing. I have been labeled as someone who is destroying the culture of Pakistan, who is destroying the local culture, just because I'm speaking about rights. So it's life-threatening at times. So there are some kind of like, we are able to change a lot minds of a lot of people, but at the same time it's very life-threatening. 2 years back our family was attacked and we had to relocate. Just last week, like 10 days ago, again my family was attacked. So it's kind of like our survival just depend on chance. If you live there and you counter extremism, if you counter the status quo, if you counter patriarchy, then your survival depends on chance. It's really a matter of chance that you survive or you got killed.
It's amazing that your family stood with you and by you.
Yeah, my family is very supportive because my father is a human rights activist. He has suffered at the hands of patriarchy, at the hands of militancy. He's a victim and a survivor. My mother is a victim and a survivor. So they made sure that they make a family, a home, which is like coexistence. And in our home, you can be extremely religious or you can be extremely irreligious, and we survive together, we live together, and it's totally fine. And my own father was actually charged for blasphemy in late 1990s when he criticized policy of the state for supporting militancy. He criticized it Pakistan should not be part of any militancy initiatives, and for that he was charged for blasphemy. Like, it was blasphemous. And then luckily or unluckily 9/11 happened and definitions changed in the world, and jihad became terrorism all over the world. So that I think it was just because of that incident that my father actually could be free, and he wasn't punished for criticizing the policies.
Thank you very much. It was brilliant hearing from you.
Thank you, Maryam.
The insane fatwa this week is from a mullah in Iran who talks about how you need to be putting your trousers on.
How do you think you should be putting it on?
Well, there's many rules. He says there are norms on how to wear trousers.
And who sets the norms?
I guess he does. Just insane fatwa issuers do.
I think he has a direct line, because he said that if you stand up and you put your trousers on facing Mecca, God's get really angry with you, and it's going to put you in a lot of pain.
You're going to be in so much pain. But what's interesting is we actually tried it as a scientific experiment. We faced Mecca and we put our trousers on standing up, even though we were supposed to sit down. And I'm not feeling very much pain.
I'm not sure if you did that scientifically, because he says you've got to turn around, face the other way around, and then be sitting down as well. You have to be sitting down to do this.
Yeah, but I did it standing up, and I'm not in pain.
I think we should let our viewers actually see the actual program. Watch this.
Watch it so that you know how you need to put your trousers on, so that you're not in pain that can never be cured.
If you like trousers.
پوشیدن شلوار به سمت قبله مکروهه. شما میدانید که اولا دستور داریم در آداب لباس، فرمودن شلوارش انسان میخواد بپوشه، بنشینه بپوشه، ایستاده شلوار نپوشید. در روایت داره اگر کسی ایستاده شلوارشو بپوشه، خدای متعال به درد او رو گرفتار میکنه که درمان نداشته باشه.
The slice of life this week is from Nenous Thabit. He is an Assyrian young teenager who says that ISIS has been destroying artwork, and he's fighting ISIS with art. And he's gone ahead and made replicas, beautiful replicas, of the artwork that ISIS has been destroying.
Just humanity cannot be destroyed by ISIS and religion. That's continue.
Yeah, definitely. Watch this short video of him and his work. It's really inspiring and just beautiful and wonderful. And we're at the end of our program now. We hope you enjoyed this week's program. It's nice to have the two of us back together, at least from my perspective.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Hellish not having you here. And we hope you enjoyed this week's program, and we'll see you again at the same time and same place next week. Until then,
goodbye.
Bye. Hi, I'm Maryam Namazie.
And I'm Fariborz Pooya.
We're hosting a program called Bread and Roses. It's a weekly program that's broadcast in Persian and English in the Middle East and North Africa, primarily Iran as well. And it's also shown on YouTube internationally.
And we've been doing this since last May. We're coming up to our year's anniversary, and we've had quite a lot of fun making these videos.
We discuss taboo-breaking, free-thinking ideas. The Islamic regime of Iran has called us immoral and corrupt.
And that's why you need to support us. We are the alternative voice in Middle East and North Africa.
Of corruption and immorality. So do support us. Here's a short video from Patreon that explains how you can help us with even just $1 a week. That's nothing. Support us.
Patreon lets fans become patrons of their favorite artists and content creators. It's different than Kickstarter because it's not about one big project that requires lots of funding. It's more for bloggers or YouTubers or webcomics, anyone who creates on a regular basis. Here's how it works. When you become a patron, you're agreeing to give an artist a tip of an amount you set every time they release a piece of content, whether it's a new song, a video, or a recipe. You can set a monthly maximum to make sure that you're always within your budget. Choose an amount, enter your payment information, and you're done. Becoming a patron allows you to view and post in the artist's stream, and in exchange for your support, artists offer additional patron packages, which might include monthly Google Hangouts, music production tutorials, pre-sale concert tickets, or anything they can offer as a way to say thanks. Patreon, empowering a new generation of content creators.